Welcome to Audio Branding, the hidden gem of marketing. Sound plays a more important role in human behavior and our decision-making than you may realize. In this podcast, I'll help you understand the art and science of sound so you can better influence others in business and your life. I'm your host, Jodi Krangle. Let's delve a little deeper. Welcome, Andrea. It's so great to have you here. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks,
and I've been looking forward to this. Yeah.
Thanks. Big honor. Very excited.
Yeah. So it was great meeting you in the International Sound Awards.
Yeah.
That was a lot of interesting people and a lot of interesting things to look at and listen to. It was very educational, I think, for everyone that participated. So I'm glad.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great occasion to check out different types of projects. Sometimes some are very commercial, big sound design firms, and some others are more experimental or research. So it's always a good occasion to learn something new.
Yeah, very much so. I was impressed with a lot of what I was seeing. And it was good to see where the innovations are happening.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes.
Yes. And you were a great host. I have to say, yes, absolutely. But I think it's your voice, because since I really reflected about it and say, wow, if I had such a voice, it would be... But do you study to have, do you practice or is it natural, your voice?
Oh, the voice?
Yeah.
I'm a singer, so I've been singing all my life. I don't know, maybe that has something to do with it. My grandfather had the most gorgeous, really deep, chocolatey radio voice on my mom's side.
You inherited, is in your genes, of course. Yeah, because it is clear and you have this little hiss. Also,
okay. The little air.
Yeah.
I'm happy that it is enjoyable for people, and that's really it's very fulfilling for me actually, because then I can calm people down. It's all about feeling emotion, which is what sound does, right? We've been talking about this for a while now, and. Yeah. Speaking of that.
Mm-hmm. No, wait. No, because the other day I was driving, and so I'm driving alone in the car, and I try to imitate your. And after 2 minutes, I was coughing like this, and I thought, did you ever see the Altamont concert, the infamous Altamont concert, where the Rolling Stones? There was one murder in the concert.
No!
It was a kind of Woodstock in the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Bad acid circulating between people, riots, and there is one moment where the 13th Floor Elevators play, and the girl who sings, they see a riot, and she starts calming the people, and she has this. Like in, I don't know, 10 seconds, she talks like with your tone like this,
okay.
and the riot stops.
So I could stop riots. Okay, good to know.
Exactly.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But getting on to your background in this,
yes.
I would love to know if you have an early memory of how sound moved you.
Yeah. This is more or less like this. The realization of the power of sound, to me, it came very late, like when I was 30.
Okay.
And the reason is that for me, music is a kind of native tongue. Probably I learned at the same time to play a little glockenspiel and to talk. So for me, sound and music are never been a mystery or something, you know. Then, so I started, you know, I had my own piano that I learned to play it, like understanding the keyboard without lessons, stuff like this. And about 15, 16 years old, when I came back from school, I eat, and then I will put the headphones and relax listening. I don't know. At the time, I had the Sacre du Printemps, the Rite of Spring by Stravinsky.
Okay.
And
yeah.
I got out of the world, you know. I discovered that when I was 15, 16. But the real realization, it was when I started having some kind of big audience for me, like 300, 500 persons. And when I was 30 to 40, I made a lot of music for choreographers, for theater productions, and I don't play live. I stay behind the scene with the sound engineers and light engineers, and I don't do nothing. I just watch the public. And when I had some like 300, 500 persons, I could really see the effect of the sound. Like you can make some kind of multi-layered, complex situation, and you see the heads moving in an independent way. They look different dancers or performers. But then you start a slow crescendo, and everybody freeze, and you see the heads of the people that don't move.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it was around that age that I really started to say, wow, I mean, what you learn studying composition really works in a kind of subconscious way, even if you have very sophisticated audience, like the Parisian public who go see contemporary dance. Still, if you do something like you disrupt their attention, for instance, or you create a soundscape and then you stop it, you see people freeze, and that came later, and it was like the end of this long process of being natural in music and understanding the power of it. So I don't have a moment. Right.
It's okay. It seems like it's a progression. It's moved over time. And yeah, I guess seeing the way that would affect an audience in real time would be really fascinating.
It's a gift. And I had, because from 30 to 40, I made a lot of collaborations with choreographers and performers, etc. And since I don't play, when I go to the performance, I like to observe the public. And you learn a lot of things.
I'll bet. Yeah. So did that get you into sound design? Because that's kind of like a different branch of that, I would gather.
What happened is that, in fact, well, when you work with theater or dance, you are not a typical musician in a way. Because there are many points where you just design things that help the visual part, for instance, or the choreography. You don't want to take the same place as the choreographers. So here you go outside the intrusive element of typical music that is made for be listened to. You do something else. And this is more like the first examples of design for me. Like sometimes, you need just to put a sinusoid like this for 2 minutes, and it will be perfect. And you cannot call this music. You just made a sinusoid, and with a certain choreography, it will be perfect. Or I don't know. Sometimes with an Italian company which is called Ricci Forte, we played at the beginning of the show the sound of, the gas in the kitchen, the gas. Okay, you open the gas and you don't put the flame.
Ah, yes. Okay, so the air. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I recorded that, which is kind of dangerous because you don't have to.
Got to be careful.
Exactly. And I looked, and we put just this at the beginning of the show, and it, for instance, it creates some kind of almost inaudible sense of danger.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, this is design because it has to be distillated. For me, design is distillation, is taking away and just using the minimum necessary to convey a sensation. And from there, what happened? It happened that I was invited to do a collaboration for an interesting exposition about Roland Barthes, the French philosopher, at the Centre Pompidou, the Beaubourg, the Centre Pompidou in Paris. And here, I was invited to design some kind of inaudible sounds that allowed to differentiate the different zone of the exposition. And here I worked with the equipe of the Centre Pompidou, which have a tradition to do that. So you don't realize, but there is some kind of a very subtle sound that paint the atmosphere of different spaces. And this is another case of sound design. And from there, since, the Centre Pompidou is in correlation with IRCAM, and the IRCAM is this Center for Research in computer science, acoustics, psychoacoustics, and music. From there, I started collaborating with the sound design department of IRCAM, and then we started working with Renault, the French car maker.
I was going to ask you about Renault. Yeah, because it's quite the transition. So you're working on things that people are seeing and hearing outside and experiencing, and then going to something like a car where you're experiencing it on the inside.
yeah. Well,
and the outside, I gather.
Exactly. Yes, because over the years, so the first automotive stuff that we did was, I think, 2005 or 6. But the big project was the external sound for Renault Zoe.
The electric cars.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
It's this artificial sound that the electric car have to make to be audible from the bikers or people on the street. And so we started from there, this collaboration, and then we practically did all the concept, the Zoe, the first sound, and then all the concept car that came after Zoe. There was a series of electric concept cars, and then the last collection is the collection E-Tech in 2022, and we are still working now in future things.
And is that for the internal or external or?
So this is mainly external sounds.
Okay.
And occasionally we do also internal, like blinkers, and all the sounds. One interesting was in 2018, we worked for sounds to accompany the autonomous drive experience. So the car is driving, you are reading your paper, but there are some sounds that help you understand what the car is doing. For instance, if there is a sudden turn, you have a little beep beep to be sure that you don't get surprised by.
Yeah, so you know what's going on. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's really fascinating. And yeah, so I guess the sounds have changed between when you started in 2005 and how they've turned out in 2022. So what do you find was the biggest difference between the sounds earlier and the ones that are happening now?
Well, things have changed. Zoe was probably the first electric car with a external sound. So at the time, our project was to analyze some kind of average urban soundscape to find if there is an average frequential profile of urban soundscapes, and to try to see if there are niches of frequencies where you can put the sound of the electric car in order to be audible without too much volume. So the sound of Zoe is made following these principles. Today, the sounds of the city is already changing, thanks to many things, not only electric cars, also the normal cars now are much more silent.
Interesting. I didn't realize that. So they're getting, even the regular cars are getting quieter.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I bought one car. I don't say which car, but from 2018, and is extremely silent, almost like an electric car at very low speeds. Yeah,
I'm impressed.
Yes,
I didn't think that was possible.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You know, now they have these little motors like a 900 centimeter cubic, and the techniques for isolation for improved a lot. So now the sounds of the city is different, and at the same time, you have many electric cars with sound. Okay, so now there is maybe one important thing to do is to differentiate the different models, the different brands. At the same time, the sounds can be even more thin because there is less big noise. Yeah.
So what would be the difference between Renault's branding sounds of their car as opposed to maybe someone else? Like, is there, because there's a specific way that you're building sounds for Renault that you wouldn't build for someone else, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, so you have to imagine that Renault is a long story. When we did Zoe, they made a lot of focus groups, interviews, internal and external. We did some review of also the movies, how in cinema sound designers from the past imagined sound of non-combustion vehicles. To understand if the collective imagination is ready for certain types of sounds. So that was a big part of work at the beginning, and then the sound of Zoe became some kind of a DNA almost, and then we worked to several concept cars, and each one explored different dimensions. So when we arrived to the new collections of 2022, these are some kind of selection of features from I don't know, the Desir concept car from 2011, and if you go on my YouTube, I have a complete playlist with all the sounds that we made.
Interesting.
And the 2022 are little pieces of one and the other, a little bit of remembering the Zoe. And there is already an aesthetic, an history, a citation even. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the overarching theme then of Renault that wouldn't be for another car? Like, what's continued throughout all those years?
Yes. Well, Renault is not a super sport brand. Is not super technical. Their image is more something reassuring. family
Okay.
oriented.
Yeah.
Now I have all French words come in
It's
that.
yeah.
Uh,
It's
mm,
okay. It's curious to me that a brand would have its own sound, like definitely. I know that they would, but that they would carry that through into the internal sounds in the car and the external sounds of the car, which I think is very important. And I think a lot of cars are starting to do that. I know Mercedes has started doing
yeah.
their own sound system. And there are a lot, I think, that are going to be taking part in
Yes.
that music renaissance or that sound renaissance
Yes.
because of autonomous cars, right?
Yes,
Like
yes,
we're,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. For what I can see, I saw that, for instance, Audi and
Yep.
Porsche, for instance, they tend to do sounds which uh, somehow resemble to some features of sport
Yes.
uh, thermic traditional sounds.
Okay.
In fact, they really they tend to do a kind of electric version of a traditional sport motor
So the
engine.
sound
Sorry.
of the engine is what
Yes,
you're talking
exactly,
about.
exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
The external sound.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
There are some, for instance, Toyota is very abstract. I mean, the ones that I see here in Italy, I don't know if in Canada or in the States the sounds are different, but here Toyota, for instance, is very abstract. High pitched is a bichord like this, for instance. Renault is more reassuring, more is warm, is welcoming, is a little bit more, is less cold than other sounds.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe if it doesn't focus specifically on the sound of the engine,
Mm.
but even the engine sounds have been changing over the years, right?
Yes.
Like they're getting, like you said, they're getting softer
Yes.
or they're
Yes.
getting electric.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. Here I was talking about the fake electric.
Yes.
The so-called it's called AVAS.
Okay.
Autonomous vehicle alert sound, something like this. I don't remember
Okay.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because it's necessary for people to be able to hear the car coming.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really fascinating to see how this is changing over the years too, especially with the outside environment that it's in having changed. It's interesting that it would need to abide by what's happened in the cities or the places where you would be driving this car
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make the sounds work with the environment they're in. I just
Yeah.
think that's really fascinating.
Yeah. Then maybe today there is a strange phenomenon. So you have new cars or electric cars that are very quiet. And at the same time, there is this custom culture where they take a normal car and they transform it.
Revving the engine. Yes.
Yes, exactly. And this also has progressed in an incredible way. So they make really loud noises and also bikes. And also then there is the industry of the super sport cars where I live almost every day I see a Ferrari, a Maserati, stuff like this, and they make a hell of a noise, really. Also, they have augmentation, they have resonators. Now there are lots of techniques. So today, the soundscape is strange because it can be very soft, but then you have some individuals with a extremely loud output, much more than before, probably.
Yeah. They can't help themselves.
Exactly, exactly. Then used here in Italy where I live, there is also some older truck or bus with kind of noisy emission, and so basically the saliency of sounds is really different. Like probably in the 70s, the traffic noise were more homogeneous because the cars were more or less the same. Now
Yeah.
you can have like 1 minute of bliss of almost silence, an electric car passing, and after 2 minutes you have a super super loud, and that's maybe that's even worse than before, maybe because you have this up and downs of auditory attention, which is really elicited in a violent way when these motors engines pass.
Yeah, yeah. I think people driving motorcycles, it's the same deal.
Yeah.
And I think, unfortunately, I think that a lot of the cars in North America are a little louder because it's taking us a little longer to go the electric route, I think, in a lot of cases. And I am still hearing people with their, hopped up engines, and I'm also hearing people with regular cars just driving along without the electric, loud as whatever. So yeah, it's hard. I think it's interesting too, because we tend to drive bigger cars here than in Europe.
Yes.
Because farther spaces, true, but also wider streets. So yeah, there's not that. I don't know if I'd call it an opportunity, but yeah, I love small cars. Personally myself, but yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Then with the time, I work more and more over the internet, so I tend to travel less. So really,
so you're not seeing it as much.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a small car. I don't need the.
Yeah. Count yourself as lucky. You not having to go and experience the big roads. It's okay. I'm really fascinated by the on the road culture of the 60s and the 70s. Really, those were big cars.
There is one movie, Two-Lane Blacktop. I don't know if you ever.
I have not heard of that one. No.
With there are. James Taylor, the singer, is one actor, and the other is the drummer from the Beach Boys.
I love it.
Danny Wilson. You have to see, if you like road movies, this one is really one to watch, because you have just these two guys with a Chevrolet, and they travel, and you have a lot of scenes like at night.
Yeah, the car sounds. Yeah.
And these two guys, they almost never talk. They don't have name. The James Taylor is the driver.
Okay.
And Wilson is the mechanic.
Okay.
And they drive for the whole movie. Beautiful.
That's a very cool concept. I'm going to have to look for that one, definitely.
Yeah. Two-lane blacktop.
Two-lane blacktop. Okay. Anyone who's listening, there you go. You got to check it out.
Put a link on your...
we'll find it. Well, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for listening. And if you like what you heard, why not tell a friend about this podcast? It's available in all the usual locations. Until next time.